So you want to be the most powerful wizard that has ever lived in the wizarding world, huh? Now in Hogwarts Legacy you can in fact use all combat spells at the same time, and I found it also to be the most fun way to play the game. So therefore in this video I will go over the most powerful all-round build using all combat spells, but with the prio being on the yellow, purple and red spell. So whether you want to use the dark arts or do not want to use the dark arts, you will be fine either way. Now the emphasis of this build will lay on the most powerful and fun combos that you can do in this game, as set by the best spell sets and enhanced by the best traits and talents. It took me a lot of testing to come to the conclusions found in this video, but I do truly think that this is the best build out there that is actually also fun, not just spamming one thing, and requires no to minimal setups and doesn't need consumables in any capacity. Basically you become a monster that can infinitely stay in combat and destroy everything, where you have tools to deal with any situation as you use every single spell in an optimized way. Let's get right into it. Now first of all, let's go over talents, so the spell sets and combos that I will get into in a second will make more sense. First I want to talk about the spells talent tree. In this tree you just want to grab everything. Every single one of these is amazing, and with only an investment of 10 points you will pretty much enhance every single spell in all our spell sets, so it's pretty much a no-brainer. The Incendio, Accio, Defendo and Levioso masteries are all great talents that will give our spells an AoE component, which is really nice because if you have played the game, and you probably have, you will know that a lot of the combat in this game will be in fact versus a lot of enemies at the same time, so AoE damage and control will be amazing. The Defendo and Incendio masters will give us great AoE nuke damage, while Accio and Levioso will give us AoE control. Following similar reasoning, and because the world in Hogwarts Legacy is just ridden with a lot of enemies in confined spaces, we also want to get the Pulso, Descendo, Glacius, Confringo and the Bombarda masteries. Basically it makes our presence on the battlefield as explosive as possible, with a lot of our damage and ground control capabilities being enhanced, mostly because our spells will do more damage or strike a bigger area. Then finally I want to highlight the transformation talent, because it's an absolute god tier talent. So transformation in itself already immediately gets rid of an enemy by transforming the enemy into a barrel, but with this talent you will get a explosive barrel instead of a normal barrel that you then can throw at other enemies, and it will just explode and one-shot them, making this a really good talent that you definitely want to get. Going over the Dark Arts talent tree, we want to grab the Disarming Curse and Knockback Curse. These are the only traits that are mandatory in this tree for this all-round build. It enhances our Expelliarmus and Flipendo spell and makes them apply a curse on our enemies when cast, which is nice because cursed enemies will take more damage from us, as you may or may not know, meaning we can use these spells as the first spell in a combo of spells to ramp up the rest of the damage output of our combo, and just spells that will be subsequently cast. Additionally, if you have more points to spend, I do recommend you to get the Curse Sapper talent, so you can restore some HP when you kill a enemy with a curse, and the Enduring Curse, so your curses just last longer on your enemies, which is nice versus things that have a lot of HP. Now this build isn't going to be focused on the Dark Arts, because like I said, it's an all-round build that uses every single spell to maximize the fun, so the talents related to the Dark Arts are definitely not needed, and with that also means that you can start making this build very early on. Then this brings me to the final tree that we will be investing in, which is the core tree. Basically a lot of things in this tree are great, except for the potion ones. Those are just completely useless. So if you have the points, I would definitely get everything except for those two. The ones I would however prioritize and would actually say to be absolutely mandatory are all three spell knowledge ones, so you can actually use various combos and swap between completely different spell sets, which is really important for this build. And the swift one, so we get a much more useful type of dodge. Then also the basic cast mastery one to reduce the cooldowns of our spells, and so we can actually use them faster as well, is one I really recommend to get. After getting these absolute mandatory talents, I would next up prioritize the Protego, Stupefy and Evasion talents in the order as shown on screen, but really all of these are really great and help you immensely with surviving, but also reward you for defending yourself by either stunning or damaging your enemies even more, and giving you more ways to build up your ancient magic. And then finally, for this build you do not need to invest points in stealth or room of requirement. Now I have to preface the next section by saying that all footage in this video was in fact recorded on hard mode. With the talents in mind and accordingly the enhanced abilities that we get from the talent trees, let's get into the spell sets of my build. Since this is an all-round build, we use pretty much every spell and use the combos that from a synergy perspective I have personally found to be the most useful, powerful and fun to use in conjunction, but the spell sets are also based on the proximity of the enemies that we're fighting. So my first spell set is going to be Accio, Incendio, Depulso and Transformation. This spell set is based on close range combat with push and pull factors to completely manually manipulate the position of our enemies. Incendio is the main damage dealing spell of the spell set, but it only covers you in pretty much melee territory, so logically you need a setup spell for it like Accio. Incendio has really good AoE damage output however. In fact, it's even the fire spell with the highest base damage in the entire game, and thus that means that Accio is needed for the spell to pull your enemies, and since Accio pulls multiple mobs at the same time thanks to our talents, Incendio will quickly do amazing AoE damage, and usually that already in itself will destroy whatever you're fighting with this setup. But if somehow they survive this lethal combo, then you can chain it with the Pulso, finishing them off by pushing them so hard away, and with the collision damage that your enemy will receive, they'll accordingly get killed. The Pulso is also great as a standalone spell by the way, as it can just one-shot a lot of things. Just make sure that the mob you're pushing away bounces into something with the force of the Pulso, and that will quickly take care of them. Putting the Pulso and Accio in the same spell set makes a lot of sense for me. We basically have both a pull and push factor to completely manipulate the position of our enemies, and with Incendio thrown in the mix, they will never really survive either the 2-part combo or the 3-part combo. The transformation spell is the final piece of the puzzle, and in this spell set, transformation is an absolute god tier spell, as I already mentioned before. You can't put transformation in any spell set really and it would work, but this spell set made the most sense for me since it will also trivialize anything near you, make an explosive barrel out of something nearby and throw it at something far away to instantly get rid of multiple enemies at the same time. The second spell set of this build is going to be our long range and control spell set. Expelliarmus is pretty much the best early game spell in the game, but it stays good all the way through. You can use it to disarm anything, and combined with the throw you get from throwing the disarmed weapon back at your enemy, you can just obliterate a lot of things. But the ultimate combo with the other 3 spells would then look like this. You want to use Expelliarmus first to apply the curse for more damage thanks to the talent that we took, and if the enemy can in fact be disarmed, then this combo would even be better. Usually that in itself will already take care of your enemy, but if not, then chain it with a Levioso and a Descendo, and these two are amazing together. You can even use them as a 2-spell combo in itself without the other spells in this spell set, and you will already one-shot a lot of things as you see. You can even weave in some basic attacks because airborne enemies can't do anything back and they'll take more damage if you want, and then ultimately just descend them into the ground to deal amazing damage. You use Confringo if something is still alive somehow after the first 3 parts of the combo, and it does a great job at damage with its initial blow, but also the following damage over time mechanic that it has, it will keep burning your enemy. But after like level 30 you can use various 2-part combos within this spell set, and those combos in themselves will already just one-shot everything. Then the final spell set in my build is going to be the Nuke spell set, basically a combination of our highest damaging spells that we can cast at any times from any range, Defendo and Bombardo, and then enhancing these 2 spells by Glacius and Flipendo to make their damage output even higher. So the combo would then look like this: Flipendo to apply the curse for more damage, into a Glacius to modify the next damaging dealing ability, into a Defendo, and then finally finish off your enemy with a Bombarda if the Defendo didn't already kill off the enemy, because really Glacius into a Defendo in itself will already do bonkers damage and just one-shot everything. You most of the time don't really need to use the Bombarda as well. Logically you can also chain Glacius with Incendio as well if you want, but the problem is Incendio works only in melee range, so you have to use it with a setup spell if your enemy is in the distance, while Defendo is the fire spell with the second highest base damage that you can actually cast from any place, and that makes Glacius and Defendo the best Glacius combo for me personally. This spell set is also the ultimate troll slaying spell set. Basically use their weakened states that you can get with using Flipendo when timing it right into a Glacius, Defendo, Bombarda, anything really to erase their existence quickly. And the damage output with the gear and trait setup that I will show you in a bit on a troll that is in its weakened state can get absolutely ridiculous. Expect damage numbers up to 16,000 damage with a single spell. Yes, it gets that crazy. Finally, we have the 4th spell set. This is either the Dark Arts spell set with the final spell that we didn't use before, which is Arresto Momentum, or if you don't want to use Dark Arts, then you can use it for utility. The Dark Arts spells do not have a lot of depth to them. Just Avacadabra everything out of existence basically. It one-shots and obliterates anything you cast it on. You can even go a step further and use the enhanced version of Crucio with the talent to curse a bunch of targets at the same time, and then use the enhanced Avacadabra for one-shotting an entire group in one go. In that case, you do have to get the talents for both Crucio and Avada Kedavra though. And then finally, use Imperio to control anything. Usually it is the best if you can manage to Imperio a troll. That means free wins in arenas most of the time. With that, I also want to mention to always keep cool mechanics like Petrificus Totalsing and Imperio troll, but also generally speaking, make sure to use enemy specific combos. And I went over those in my other Hogwarts Legacy video, so check that video out as well to know more about all of those combos. Definitely a lot of useful information in that video as well that you want to know of for combat. Now we also need to talk about gear and traits. Gear is easy to come by in Hogwarts Legacy. You just want to get all your gear in a legendary tier. This allows you to put on the highest ranks of traits on them and gives you the most stats. Then accordingly you want to upgrade them and max out your offense and defense. The more important stat out of the two is your offense stat, however, which you get by upgrading your face wear, headwear and outfit, since you can dodge and protego to prevent a lot of incoming damage. Now for traits, however, it really boils down to two options for this build. I do think these two traits are overall the best all-round traits in the game, and traits do stack in Hogwarts Legacy, so you can in fact run 6 of the same trait and enjoy all those juicy bonuses that will in fact stack. From a raw damage output perspective, Unforgettable rank 3 will give you the highest damage output in the game as long as your targets are cursed. It is 30% extra damage for every gear piece that you put the trait on, and since it stacks additively, you will have 180% extra damage against your cursed target, which is really nuts. However, I would say that Concentration rank 3 is also equally good. It gives you 9% damage per trait, but it adds it multiplicatively, so using it 6 times will net you a bonus of around 67%. But this 67% extra damage is against everything, whether the target is cursed or not, and that is a pretty important distinction. If you, by the way, want to know how to get these traits in the easiest way possible, go to any bandit camp on the map, clear it, and in these camps you will have these chests with a very specific look, and these chests have the traits inside of them. But before you loot the chest, make sure to save, because every time you open the chest it will randomly generate a trait. So you can keep reloading your save until you get your desired trait. And this also applies to gear, by the way, so when you loot those big chests to get legendary gear, make sure to save and reload until you have each of your 6 gear slots covered. Now let's compare the two traits, Unforgivable and Concentration, side by side and in a practical use case. Specifically on cursed targets, you will deal up to 67% extra damage with Unforgivable. But if the target is not cursed, then Concentration will instead deal up to 67% extra damage, as Unforgivable will essentially do 0 extra damage and it will be like running no traits at all. Now that might sound pretty obvious, but it highlights that it can kinda backfire to run Unforgivable, as already a lot of things in the game get one-shotted with Concentration, whereas with Unforgivable on the same exact type of enemy without a curse applied would not one-shot them. But then why would you apply a curse first and then accordingly use a damage dealing spell when you can just use Bombarda for instance instead and one-shot it immediately with Concentration? It becomes a question of opportunity cost, and Unforgivable will steer your playstyle in always wanting to apply curses to actually benefit from the bonuses, when it's not always needed, as you just saw with the Bombarda on a Loyalist Warrior example. With how scaling works in Hogwarts Legacy, your base damage starts growing exponentially after a certain level, as is shown in this graph, which was made from data mined values found by user Blahabel on Reddit. I hope I say your name right, so shout out to him for giving these great insights in how the scaling in this game works. So your offensive scaling gets pretty bonkers around here and onwards, meaning that I found Concentration and its bonus is more than enough for any situation in the game really, without giving me that hard requirement of needing to use curses every time to actually get a benefit in combat from my traits. I can for instance use Accio into Incendio to one-shot, or just one-shot with Bombarda with Concentration, or let's say on Trolls, just use a Glacius into a Defendo in their weakened state, which will already do crazy damage, up to 16,000 damage, like I just showed you with Concentration. Whereas with Unforgivable, that might not always be the case if you forget to apply your curses. But Unforgivable definitely is the highest damage giving trait if you actively make sure that everything is cursed. So my personal recommendations for which trait you specifically want to run is as following. If you feel like you make good use of curses and just use the Dark Arts a lot, then go for Unforgivable. However, if you don't use the Dark Arts too much like I personally did, and your focus is more on the combos with the other spells, then definitely just go for concentration, as it will obliterate everything anyways and will be a much more generally applicable trait, and in some scenarios even be more useful and practical than the more damage stacking Unforgivable. But both options are great, you really can't go wrong with either. Just make sure to cater it to your specific playstyle. With that, we have now discussed every aspect of the build. I didn't really bother using potions or consumables because really the game is too easy once you get good gear and traits, even on hard mode. So prioritize getting good gear and you should be 100% fine. Without consumables and potions, I found it also to be the most fun, but if you want to use potions, definitely get the Hopping Potion Station Craft, which you get from the recipe from the Scrolls and Tomes shop in Hogsmeade. Those are an amazing spellcraft. It basically gives you 3 useful potions every 12 minutes for free. What more could you possibly want? Then I would also recommend you to do these activities in the world so your ancient magic bar gets bigger, meaning you can use more ancient magic, which is a really hard hitting destructive spell that one-shots a lot of things in the game, but also gives you iframes so you can't get hit when you're casting them. And finally, most importantly, make sure to enjoy your journey in the wizarding world. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a like, subscribe for more, and let me know your thoughts in the comments.